I think it is important to note that I am not advocating for or against the personal choice of giving your child ADHD medication, nor am I advocating for you to take your child to the doctor to see if your child has ADHD. I am also not advocating for your belief in ADHD or not. I would just like to provide you all with some information so that you can consider both sides, have the facts, and ensure that your child is getting what is best for them. Hello, I'm Coach Bev, coming to you from Regal Awakening Educational Coaching Services. Today we are going to talk about ADHD, the symptoms and the signs, and whether or not you think your child may or may not have it. And if they do, what can you do about it? Well, before we get started, we're going to go into the coffee corner. Today, I am doing the 8 o'clock coffee company. The flavor that we're going to be discussing is cherry pie. Now, I have done this one before, but I feel like I wanted to try it again because it actually stood out to me and I like it. I'm going to have a taste test because I was wondering if I wanted to reconsider its place in the line of Dunkin' Donuts and every other coffee. I think that I may have a strong contender here, so I am going to see. I have been drinking on this coffee a little more often than I anticipated that I would, and it's actually a good type of coffee. I'm just loving the cherry flavoring that I am tasting at the end of the taste. When I swallow, it's as if the cherry flavor just fills my mouth, and I really do like it. The 8 o'clock coffee company was founded in Michigan. We are actually drinking coffee that is made in the US and from the upper northern states of the country. Before we get started on our topic today, I would really like to give a shout out to my company that makes all of the stuff for me, my t-shirts, my mouse pad, my coffee cups, my cup holders. The name of the company that I use is Exquisite Styles. I found them on Instagram when I was getting started, and when I had a vision on how I wanted my set to look. They have been great from the beginning. They have fast turnaround time. They communicate with you very quickly to get you what you need, what you want. They make certain that they meet all of the needs. For instance, I specify that I would like to have my coffee, my label on the left hand side of the cup because I'm left handed. And as you can see, that has not been a problem. So that when I pick up my cup, you can see my Regal Awakening label. I really do appreciate them. I have gone to them several times to get all of my different items. I also have a face mask that says Regal Awakening. I have a keychain. It just seems as if there is no limit into the products that they can produce. And I really do appreciate them. They do a marvelous job. Thank you, Exquisite Styles. So today, before we begin with our chit chat, I need to do a disclaimer. And I need to make sure that you all understand that I am not a doctor, a therapist, a psychologist, and neither am I pretending to be. This video is not intended for you to use it in any way to diagnose or to figure out if your child has ADHD or not. I am simply providing information in case you may notice that something is a little amiss, and perhaps you may want to get it looked at a little deeper, or perhaps you just want to view the video just to see the content in it, and that is fine as well. I am a life coach. I am not a certified doctor, therapist, psychologist, and I'm just here to simply give you my perspective. So now that we have that out of the way, we are going to begin our chit chat. Now, when it comes to ADHD, there are so many different perspectives that you can get from so many different people. It seems as if everybody has an opinion. A lot of people does not believe that it is actually a condition that exists. People can be judgmental if you tell them, my child has ADHD or not. It is not widely received. Um, you generally tend to get a lot of feedback from people that really don't have children, or people who have children that don't have ADHD. These people are not privy to the day-to-day goings on of what happens in the life of a child that is dealing with ADHD. So when it comes to ADHD, I would consider it to be sort of a controversial topic. If you have a child that has ADHD and you're trying to argue your point with people who don't really understand, it could get to be a bit much. As I stated before, it is considered a myth to some people. Some people do not believe that ADHD is a real thing. I've heard people say that it's called daddy ain't home syndrome, things of that nature. In addition to the controversial nature of ADHD, I would also like to factor in the lack of trust in the medical community that a lot of people have for this type of diagnosis. People are quick to assume that um, doctors and teachers just want to slap a label on a child, a label that could possibly hinder them from achieving their many great goals in life. A lot of people tend to think that the teacher has a vendetta against the child, and the teacher's out to get my child, and all of these different things. Other people think that ADHD is a mental illness, and that is what it is not. ADHD is not a mental illness. And that is why we're having this discussion today, to try to dispel some of the myths and the untruths surrounding ADHD. Before I get started, I would like to break down the clinical definitions of ADHD. ADHD was first mentioned in 1902 by a British pediatrician by the name of Sir George Steele. He described it as an abnormal defect of moral control in children, but they were still intelligent. He's not saying that this affects their intelligence level and that the child has a mental illness, okay? He also states that it is genetic and that parents and siblings of a child with ADHD are more likely to have ADHD themselves. So that means that if you suspect, or if your child is diagnosed with ADHD, that if you could look back at your history and your dealings of going through school, that you may also find that you may have had it, or the sister or brother of the child may have ADHD as well. It wouldn't be strange if there are a lot of people from my generation or before that were not diagnosed with ADHD. It was unheard of back in the day, of course. Um, we simply got punished, got sent to our room. If we were having issues or things out of the norm in school, our parents and our communities dealt with us as they saw fit. When I graduated from school, I started hearing about ADHD, and I too started saying, well, when did this come along? When did ADHD become a thing that we're actually starting to address? Because, of course, that wasn't back when I was in school. And it wasn't until that I looked back at my educational experience and I recognized that that could very well have been the issue that I had in school. If you were unable to focus in school, you got in trouble due to lack of focus, you didn't get your work done, not because you were unable to, but because you couldn't focus on doing it. If you got put on punishment a lot by your parents or even spanked, you didn't get good conduct marks in school, you had a lack of interest in school, you just went because you were required to go. This could be an indication that you probably had some inability to focus as well in school. ADHD is not the result of bad parenting, lax parenting. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not giving your child enough discipline and structure, but it can affect your parental care. If you are parenting a child that has ADHD and you have been dealing with it for an extended period of time, it is quite possible that you can find yourself losing patience with the child. You may yell at them or scream at them or place blame on them for things that they did or did not do. Symptoms of ADHD can decrease with age. And the symptoms that you will see that would start to diminish as the child matures is the fidgetiness and the hyperactivity. Children or people that have ADHD often see themselves as misunderstood, unappreciated, and attacked for no reason. For they really don't understand why people are interacting with them in a certain type of way. Your impatience can begin to show, and they can sense it and they can pick it up. They also feel isolated because people don't want to be around them because they can have outbursts, the fidgetiness, the inability to sit still. If they are in school, especially like in elementary school, and they're getting called on a lot, and the teacher is constantly calling them to settle down or to focus, the other kids in the class may start to feel as if this is a troubled child and will not want to be their friend. And this results in their lack of friendships that they develop in school. And all of these things over an extended period of time can result in the child developing low self-esteem because they start to feel as if nobody likes them and perhaps that something is wrong with them. And they start to look at themselves the way others look at them. There are three categories of ADHD: hyperactivity, inattention, and lack of impulse control. Hyperactivity is when the children seem to be on the go as if they are being ran by a motor that will not turn off. It is non-stop. They appear, they're just going, playing, running, jumping, hopping, running, just everything, into everything, yelling, screaming, especially when they're playing with their friends. Now, this is not just to think about children playing. It's not the same thing because when the average child without ADHD plays, when they are done playing or when playtime is over, they can level down, and sit back and relax. A child with ADHD does not have this ability. Therefore, it would seem as if they are constantly 24 hours a day playing, running, climbing on the furniture, jumping, flipping. all day, nonstop. In school, this looks like a child that won't stop fidgeting. Perhaps their elementary school is circle time. The child is unable to sit with their legs crossed quietly and being still while the teacher is giving instruction. They are restless and they have difficulty playing quietly. So when they're in centers or when they are outside, they're going to be a little louder. Um, they're just restless. Impulse control. Children that lack impulse control are unable to curb their immediate reactions or think before they act. So if the teacher is teaching a lesson and she's calling on other children in the class to assess their knowledge, the child that has lack of impulse control can blurt out the answers and not give the other kids in class the opportunity to answer the question. They often think before they act. The thought comes afterwards, after you're scorning them or correcting their behavior. In school, this looks like disrupting class, intrusive or interrupting behavior. The child can't take turns, blurting out answers before being called on. They're rejected from friends, and sometimes they have accidental injury that results is their hyperplaying. Inattention. Children have a hard time keeping their minds on one thing and are easily bored with tasks. So if the child can't focus on the work that they're supposed to be doing because it's not exciting enough to hold their attention and to keep them engaged, they will have a hard time getting that work done, which results in a lot of time them having incomplete work. They're disorganized. Their academic performance is poor because of their inability to focus and complete the assignments that they are given. They have poor concentration and they barely pay attention to detail. They are easily distracted. So if they're in class and they're trying to do their work, the slightest thing can take them off task and they'll start playing or disrupting. They're forgetful. If you tell a child 3 or 4 things to do, for instance, a child that does not have ADHD, if you're at home, you could say, take out the trash, sweep your room, fold the clothes, and then clean the bathroom. A child that has ADHD will more than likely forget after the first or the second thing and not remember. This looks like you always reminding them, I asked you to do this. Why didn't you do it? Oh, I forgot. They can't remember things. They're forgetful. And this also results in them losing things. They have a hard time keeping up with where they put their belongings. And they very rarely get their tasks completed as a result of all of these things. Knowing your child is one of the most important aspects of this conversation. This is a no-brainer, but you will be surprised at how many people don't really know who their child are, and they are constantly in denial about their children. If you are ever faced with this situation, it will probably first get noticed by your child's teacher. The importance of knowing your child comes into play is when that teacher calls you and starts to have these discussions with you. You already know how your child is and how your child interacts. So it will not be a surprise to you because you've already seen these things for yourself. For people that's at home and perhaps you do not have children that started school yet, you may have like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. You will see it, but you will not know what it is. You won't understand why no matter how much you ask your child to sit still, sit down, be quiet, it seems as if they can't do it. And this goes back to the you losing patience, as I discussed earlier before. If you have a strict parenting style, some parents are like, do as I say, do as I do. And they expect for their children to have complete obedience. It looks to the parent as if the child is constantly disobeying them. And as a result, the child is constantly being punished. And it's a never ending cycle. The child is always getting pushed, no punishment. The child is always losing privileges. They can't watch TV. They can't go outside because they disobeyed you when you told them to do this and you told them to do that. This is a never ending, all day, every day situation. Parents' blood pressure is going up. They are stressed. They are getting frustrating. And you're actually starting to get tired of disciplining your child. The child is also frustrated just as well as you because, of course, they're on the end of this misunderstanding and they are receiving the treatment that you are giving them. But typically, it seems as if anything that you try and attempt to do to correct the child's behavior, nothing works. The first signs and symptoms of ADHD will start to show as early as 4 years old, and it will increase over the next 3 to 4 years. By 8 or 9 years old, the inattention is apparent. So basically what happened is in the beginning of this situation, more times than not, it will probably get noticed or called out more so often by your child's teacher. The child's teacher has a group of so many children. If the child is having discipline issues and problems having to see remaining seating or outbursts, it would be immediately apparent when they're sitting amongst the other kids. If that child would stick out like a sore thumb, you would just see it. It's obvious because you can see that the other kids are doing what they're being asked to do. They're sitting there with their legs crossed. They're listening. They're raising their hands. They're doing all of the things that they need to do. But this one child just cannot seem to do it. And so therefore, the teacher is going to see it. And eventually, as they discover that the behavior is unmanageable, then they're going to try to initiate contact with the parent. And don't forget, if you ever get this phone call, know your child, be honest. If you've seen your child demonstrate the behaviors that the teacher is showing and pointing out to you, own it. It may not feel good. It's not the best phone call to receive, but own it. The only way that we can get the child to do what they need to do is to work together in conjunction with the teacher. If you are receptive to the teacher's call and you're not offended, because it's sometimes when somebody calls and tells us that our child is not doing right in school, it's kind of easy for us to jump on the defense. And depends on who you are and your personality style. But if you are receptive to the teacher, then you and the teacher can come together and work on a plan that is going to help the child to succeed in the classroom. For instance, the teacher may say, let's do daily reports. Every day, I'll send a note home. And if Johnny has had a good day, then I will give him some type of reward. If you would like, you can give Johnny a special reward at home and try to motivate him to try to do better. And we could try to enforce this good behavior by giving him a reward. But if the child is having an ADHD issue, the privileges and the rewards, it probably won't be as effective as you hope. Depending on who the teacher is and their comfort level with you, they may not come right out and mention the topic of ADHD with you, they may, in a roundabout way, suggest that you take Tiffany to the doctor to possibly get it looked at. Um, I don't think the teacher is going to come out and say, I suspect that this child has ADHD, because just like me, they do not have the ability to diagnose and put a medical diagnosis on any child. But if there is some type of suggestion that you take Johnny outside of the school environment to try to see what's going on, that is possibly an indication that the teacher suspects that the child may have ADHD, and this will take you off guard. But again, it's gonna come back to the type of parent that you are and how you deal with the situation. If you do take the teacher's advice and take your child to the doctor or to a therapist, the teacher is going to have some forms that they have to fill out. And on that form, they are going to have a list of perhaps 100 different scenarios. And the child is going to be rated based on how they behave in those different scenarios. Once those forms are completed and sealed in an envelope, the doctor will receive those forms. They can fax it to the doctor, or if it's sealed, you can take it to the doctor, and the doctor will determine whether or not they feel as if the child has ADHD, and if there is some possible interventions that they could do to try to help the child to be successful in school. If you would like to take your child to a therapist or a psychiatrist, that is fine as well. But if you do take your child to a psychiatrist or a therapist, they will possibly try a lot of different interventions, given the opportunity to work with the child in order to help them to try to get things under control. If your doctor diagnoses the child with ADHD, and if you accept this diagnosis, you would then be faced with the decision on whether or not to medicate the child. This is not an easy step. This step comes with all types of emotions, guilt, medicating your child. You're starting to feel as if something could possibly be wrong with your child. Nobody likes to hear that their child needs to be put on medication. So this is an emotionally filled part of this process. I believe that we have all seen a child that has been sluggish, couldn't talk, just seems like they were out of it while they were in the process of taking ADHD medication. And when the doctor presents that thought to you, that option that your child could possibly take medication, that's the first thought that comes to mind. But I am here to tell you that if a child is sluggish and sleepy and can't talk, it seems like they are out of it, their dose of medication is too high, and the parent needs to take the child back to the doctor so that their medication can be adjusted. Typically, doctors will start the child off with the lowest dose of medication possible, and the child will elevate their levels of medication from that point going forward. But they definitely shouldn't start on a high dosage, and they're going to be nodding off and just completely out of it, sluggish, looks like they're intoxicated. No child should ever be on any type of ADHD medication and they're walking around in that type of manner. If you aren't sure if you're not comfortable with the diagnosis that you have received, you should always feel free to get a second opinion. We're talking about your child. Nothing is more important to us than our children. So if you would like to get a second opinion or perhaps try to not medicate, of course, that is your choice. If the child does decide to take medication, there are several different side effects that will come from taking the medication. One of the main side effects of a child taking ADHD medication is the loss of appetite. Some children, while they are on the medication, will not eat. So you have to make sure that you give the child a good breakfast in the morning because they probably will not eat their lunch. This is not every child. Some children do eat their lunch. Some children, it does not affect their appetites. But that is one that you can possibly see and one of the more familiar signs. Some children have headaches. Some children may have crying spells as they're coming down off of the medication in the evenings. And if you are seeing that happen, then you could probably talk to the doctor because the drop off of the medication, the doctor could possibly give you something to let the child off of the medication easy. Some children have anger spells, where they're angry and they have anger outbursts. So that is another thing that you could possibly look out for. Another thing that you may need to be aware of is making sure that you are communicating effectively with your child. If your child is taking ADHD medication, it's quite possible that within that child, they may feel as if something is wrong with them. The same fear that you had when you started dealing with this situation. If you are communicating with your child effectively, then you have the opportunity to make sure that the child understands that no, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a mental disability. This is you're just hyper. You need some help to calm down. And you have to explain to the child that they're perfectly fine. They're great just the way that they are. And they are no different from any other child in the class. So communicating is going to be a major factor for your child. Because of the different side effects that your child may feel, they just may not want to take the medication. And that is going to be a contender throughout the process of the child taking the medication. Whether you choose to take the medication or not, and everybody will not decide to take medication. Some parents choose to explore natural remedies instead of giving their kids medication. And I don't see anything wrong with natural remedies. In this process, everybody has the right and the ability to do what is best for their child because everybody is going to give an account for their actions. So you need to do what you think is best for your child. But if your child does take the medication, there will be, and I'm not trying to sell the medication or anything, but there will be a difference and it will be immediate. You will notice an immediate difference in the child's behavior. The reports from the school are going to start to come in saying, wow, Johnny had a great day. You do not have to tell your child's teacher that Tiffany is taking ADHD medication, especially if Tiffany or Johnny takes the medicine in the morning and they don't have to take it at school. Now, if you feel as if it's best for the teacher to know for safety reasons, then by all means do so. But it is not necessary that you get this documented in the child's record that they are taking ADHD medication. But in any event, if they do take it, you're going to start notice that the child's work is getting done. They're focused in school. Their grades are improving. The behavior at home is improved. You're finding that you can manage the child's behavior a little bit more. So this is a pro to taking the medication. I feel as if I've gone over the cons when I went over the side effects that the child could experience. I think it is important to note that I am not advocating for or against the personal choice of giving your child ADHD medication, nor am I advocating for you to take your child to the doctor to see if your child has ADHD. I am also not advocating for your belief in ADHD or not. I would just like to provide you all with some information so that you can consider both sides, have the facts, and ensure that your child is getting what is best for them. I would also like to note that you will need some medical insurance for the ADHD medication. It is very expensive. So if you do start your child on the medication, it might be to your best interest to ensure that you have a means to continue the medication. The medication can cost from $250 up to $350 just for 30 pills. So that is a hefty monthly bill that you will have to carry if you do not have medical insurance. So I do want to make certain that you understand that. It is my hope that you have been enlightened and that you have an idea and a better understanding about what ADHD is. I hope that I have dispelled myths and given you some facts that you can go on. If you have any further questions about ADHD, consult your medical physician. If you like the information that was given in this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Regal Awakening. And there is also a website at www.regalawakening.com. I am Coach Bev, and I thank you for your time. Have a nice day.